gradually, Shanai, the mind has to be controlled by the faculty of intelligence, of buddhi. And one must not think of any other thing while doing that. Also in the Upanishad we have something called Tameveka janata atmanam anyavacha vimudya. Know that one Atman and give up all other talk. Well, it seems like impossible. Well, you see, we have something called, we are going to discuss today, the networks of the mind. When we talk about networks, what is the mind? The mind is a material entity. That is conclusively proven not only by science, Vedanta and yoga proved it ages and ages ago. The mind is a material entity. But part of the mind is unperceivable, and that makes the trouble. So when we see a tree, what do we see? We see the branches and the stem and everything. We see part of the roots, and we do not see how there's a network of roots down below. Those are as important as the tree. And that's the reason why that is a network. Those networks in the mind are the subconscious level. Now, everywhere there are networks. You have the whole body and the brain included. There are neural networks in the brain. There are networks in the lungs. There are networks in the capillaries. There are networks in the blood vessels. There are everywhere. Networks and networks and networks. So, what is there in our physiology, in our neurology, also is in the mind. This whole world is networked. It's not only networks in the mind. For our purposes, we will discuss the networks in the mind, the laws that govern them. But you must understand, all life is networked, all nature is networked, everything is networked. So, if the networks are in nature, everywhere, then we also must understand the mind also is a subtle aspect of that nature. And it also has to work on the principle of networks. Now, how do these networks operate? There is a law. Swami Vivekananda says the old philosophers, the logicians, spoke about the laws of cause and effect. There's a cause, and then the cause becomes in turn the effect. And then the effect in turn becomes a cause and gives rise to another effect. It is a chain. It's a long chain. They call this by the name of Zwepti. Now, what is Zwepti? One wave in the mind gives rise to a series of waves. Nothing is independent in the mind. Nothing is independent in nature. So, as a result, Vritti is a wave in the mind. And when one wave arises, it gives rise to a series of waves, the chain effect. It's like, we have this, even when you split atoms. So here, when you look at the dominoes, so you find one domino rising and lifting the other. We have reversed the video, of course. for our illustrations, but you get an idea. When one wave arises, like the one domino, it gives rise to a series of waves. And this spreads all over the mind. Now, the sensation, the stimulus comes from outside, and it awakens a wave, and that wave awakens then a series of associations. It's very important that the mind, or anything in the mind, an idea, a thought, or an emotion, gives rise to a series of waves. This is the power of association. It's a long chain. Okay. This has to be understood, because people are trying to control their mind. They need to control the whole chain of thoughts. Otherwise, we will not be able to do anything of the mind. So, a stimulus comes from outside, and stimulus also might come from inside. You may remember one thought, and then a series of thoughts that are associated with it arise. Now, there's just not one series, but overlapping series and series of chains, as it were, associations that rise with one thing. There is then another law in nature we find, which is also found in the mind, and that is called pravritti and nivritti. Pravritti is that which circles away, and nivritti which circles inwards. It's very important to know that this law of pravritti and nivritti pervades everything in this universe, from the subatom particle to the mind to everything in nature. So one is, as you see, it's spiraling towards the center. And that is the nivritti. As you keep on saying, things pull, and then again there is something called a pravritti. It disperses. It gravitates towards center and disperses. Things that you loved and liked, now that very thing has been broken. Who broke that? It is the power of nivritti. Gravitates, pravritti, and then the gravitation breaks, nivritti. So there's always a force and a counter force working on everything. Centrifugal, centripetal, and the gravitation, everything in the universe comes to a center and disperses. We see it all over nature. The mind also functions on these two powerful forces. One is the power of association, Zwepti, and then the forces that gravitate towards the center, you, in the mind, and that which is countering that force. In a healthy mind, both these have to be balanced. So when a force comes in, and you gather everything, this is me, this is for me, my wealth, my name, my fame, and all these things, and then after a while, that thing breaks. It goes. That is unselfishness. Selfishness, unselfishness. Morality and immorality. So this whole nature works on this nature of the mind. These are the networks. Now, everyone who has tried to sit down and meditate, they understand. When they try to sit down and meditate, in the first few days, everything goes well. And then after a couple of days, or after even a couple of hours, you see all the, you can say, garbage coming out. All the old fossilized thoughts and all those things that you had forgotten, all the horror and all the good things also come. And that kind of disturbs you. Well, meditation is a process, it is actually cleaning up things. You are to now break those chains, and those chains are coming out in order that they be broken. And if the chains of memories can be broken when they come out, when they emerge out, not when they have been submerged, then it becomes easier. But people without any grit, they get dissuaded quickly from those chains, those sequences, those series of thoughts that emerge out. No, they are being coming in order to be disabled, to be neutralized. If we know the process, now how do we know the process? What do we do?
There is some. There is some.
What do we do? What we do is there was a slight, you can say, technical, you can say, difficulties here. Okay. So these series of these sequences, they emerge so that they have been destroyed. Now there are millions and millions of sequences there in the mind. So what do we do? And we find the Yoga Sutras say there are two types of, or two classes of waves in the mind. Those Zweptis, the long sequences. One class is called painful and the other not painful. It's called klishta and aklishta. Now, first we zero in on, the Yoga Sutras say, zero in on controlling the painful waves in the mind. It's called the klishta vrittis. Swami Vivekananda translated it as pain-bearing obstructions. These are obstructions, but they are painful. Now, what are they? They are ignorance, avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. That is ignorance. Then we have the sense of egotism, attachment, aversion, and the clinging on to life, a fear of death. These are the 5 broad divisions of these painful vrittis, waves in the mind. They give rise to series and series and series of waves. They are all in the subconscious. So what are the not painful? Aklishta. They have pramana, viparyaya, vikalpa, nidra, smriti. That is right knowledge, and then you can say non-discernment, and then verbal confusion, sleep, and you can say memory, nidra and smriti. So we don't have to tackle these first. We'll have to tackle the painful ones. And how do we do it? Out of those 5, ignorance, and then we have the egotism, attraction, aversion, and the fear of death. So out of this 5, the first, the second and third have to be conquered. The attraction and aversion, raga and dvesha. These are very powerful forces in the mind. If one can control them, one can control many things. So this is kind of understood. Now when we come down to this mind, this subconscious mind, and there is those huge, you can say, networks there. The whole thing has been laid out. You will have to catch the nodal points, a point where the chains are held. See, what happens, like the networks, all networks have nodes. And if you can get a grip on one of the nodes, then you loosen the chain. Now, where exactly are those nodes? Like I said, these are the 5 nodes: ignorance, and then we have something called egotism, attraction, aversion, and the fear of death. These nodes, as it were, the chains wrap themselves around those nodes. You will have to break those nodes. As simple as that. And when the nodes are broken, then what we have is the chains are freed. And what will happen? You see, there are 2 ways to do this, and we will practice them. How to disable the nodes. Because, like I said, there is one node like the stump of a tree, and then there is the chain round. There is not just one chain round one stump or node. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of chains all across, spreading out from those nodes. And this is how we have to now take care of. How do we take care of? First is 2 things. The only weapon that you have is attention. Oh, once again, that old attention. Yeah. Yes, attention is a very, very powerful, you can say, factor. As things emerge out, it is your attention. So there are 2 methods. One is to break those nodes, breaking them, and once you break those nodes or that stump where the chains are wrapped, then chains become free. You feel liberated. And then next is creating a new network. The first example is, suppose there are some people who have a smoking habit or a drinking habit. Okay. Now that habit has become a chain, it's a bondage. It's a long sequence of changes. The moment a person sees that stimulant, all those thoughts rise in the mind, the Zwepti. Now, we also know that people can break habits. The very fact that habits can be broken means, yes, there is a counter force also prevailing that has to be kind of unearthed. So what happens is the pravritti is coming out from you and going out, and the nivritti is from inside, from outside in. These 2 forces, counter forces, they counter each other. So it's just that one must be able to see that nodal point or that stump where those chains are held and break those nodal points or stumps, and then you become free. Then the mind's processes itself takes care of breaking that old chain. Second is, like we have now the 5th generation, 5G networks being laid down in the country. So we are laying down a new network and discarding the old networks, 3G or 4G, whatever. What are we doing? We are replacing those old networks with a new network. And the new networks are nothing but, you can say, divine thoughts. What we can do is practice is, sit down straight, please. Close your eyes. I would like you now to become aware of the thoughts on the screen of the mind. Right now, many of you must be experiencing there are very few thoughts. The reason is because the mind is yet more externalized than internalized. As meditation becomes deeper and deeper and deeper, then those old networks keep emerging out. That's the, you can say, enemy. That is the way you need to attack. The moment you see a thought which is nothing but a smacking of aversion or attachment, just pay attention to that particular thought. There is a kernel, a core to every series of thoughts. Hold on to that core and disable it. We would like to see you disabling. When we were young, we were taught how to smash that particular node or cut that node or destroy that node with a sharp instrument. It is called, as the Bhagavad Gita, asanga shastrena dhridena chitva. Cut that stout, you can say, roots with the sword of discrimination, discernment. And this is how you got to do it. Whenever you see a thought which smacks of aversion or you can say attachment, you need to squash it there and there. So those nodes will slowly become disabled and the chains will slowly break. So for this, we must use one of those, you can say, class of, you can say, vrittis, the cognitive vrittis, the non-pain bearing class of vrittis called pramana. That is, you can say, cognition. You must be able to use cognition in order to disable those pain-bearing obstructions. And this is done by simply paying attention. The attention becomes unwavering. The focus becomes unwavering. This is the only way one can become free from these networks. So once again, sit down quietly, please. And as you're sitting down quietly, once again watch your thoughts. Just pay attention from where the thoughts arise from, the core, the kernel. . It will emerge out of your subconscious, and that is the place where you need to hit. You may not be doing it right now, but when you practice meditation, when the mind becomes deeper and introspective and inwards, then those chains will start emerging. Because right now, you are paying more attention to my words and to what you are doing right now. But remember, this is the method. Use attention in order to break those nodes in the network, and the network slowly becomes disabled. And as you begin disabling, or you can say destroying the old networks, you will have to build a new network. Now, how do you do that? You do that by thinking of your chosen ideal, or your symbol of God, or something divine. Close your eyes, and in the center of your chest, visualize your chosen ideal. It might be a symbol, an image, anything. It might be a word also, a mantra. Repeat it, please. Repeat the mantra and visualize the deity. Visualize Shri Ram Krishna within your heart. As you practice, it becomes deeper and deeper and deeper. You are laying down a new network. This network is not only in the mind, but it has its neurological basis and a biological basis also. So as you keep on thinking of divine things, the networks in the mind will give rise to a new, you can say, surface, a divine surface of the mind. And that will influence the neural networks, and the neural networks will influence the biological networks. This is actual transformations through meditation. And as we keep on doing this over and over and over again, we are disabling old networks and building new networks. And then we will come to a stage where you have seen that you're using the laws of nature, the powers of nature, which are also the powers of the mind, in order to, you can say, meditate and improve. So, to recap a bit those two laws, one is the Zwepti, where one wave gives rise to a series of waves. One thought of the divine will give rise to the series of divine thoughts. And the pravritti and nivritti, that which is circling outwards and circling inwards. What happens is, a healthy mind, as I've said, have both these in balance. Things may come good or bad. That is the nature of the world. It will come in the mind, but they will not stay for long, because it will be broken up by the counter forces and it will go off. It will leave a residue, but that can be conquered later. We'll stop here for today. If there are any questions, we can put these questions.
So there is a question here. Someone is experiencing anger during meditation, and some thoughts about people come this anger. So he's imagined during meditation that he's cutting those thoughts, but he still keep thinking about it after the meditation. When they will ever go away?
Yes, so you are not cutting them on those very nodes. What makes you angry? Find out. If it is anger that is rising because of jealousy or hatred or egotism, that's the place where you need to hit. And there's another method. If thoughts of anger comes, think of thoughts of love. That will counter this chain. As well as you can also find when thoughts of people come, think of lonely places, mountain tops, deserts, where there are no people, forest. So you'll have to balance one chain of thought network with the other in order to disable it. But like I said, if they are coming, you are letting them also come in. So we are completely under the power of networks. So find out, and one has to be brave in this thing. Self-analysis. Find out what exactly angers you. Don't run after the chain. And then when you find the cause, break it. Because the Zwepti is the law of causation. One wave of anger gives rise to another wave of anger, and then over and over it. Okay.
He has a follow-up question, which is, should I avoid seeing these people that he feels angry towards?
Oh no, running away will not do. Find out what exactly is disturbing you. I want you to avoid bad people, of course. I mean, the criminals and this and that and all. You don't go and say, oh, I'm the Atman and you are the Atman. No, you have to keep yourself away. But at the same time, you must be able to insulate yourself. You cannot be running away from people and things. That is not living. That is running away. Tell yourself that you are strong, you are part of the divine, and that all strength and succor is within you. Awaken your own strength and face people. Be articulate. The only problem why people run away from other people is lack of articulation and knowledge. When you are sure of yourself, very sure of yourself, you build self-confidence.
Another question came. Maharaj, I'm having trouble with the concept of the negative being inside and the positive being outside. Can you clarify?
No, both negative and positive are inside. There is no such thing as negative and there's inside negative and positive outside. No. Both negative and positive are inside. There are golden chains and there are chains made of iron. Both are equally strong to bind. Now what we need to do is, you can say, those negative forces also come in, and if you can let them work their way in, you must be also let them work their way out. So both negative and positive forces come in. Pravritti and nivritti are the two forces that either go out of you and come within you. The world is a mixture of both good and bad. How do you avoid it? This is the way. What we do is, when things come in, which I have a self-interest in, I keep holding on to it. That is a problem. The moment I keep on accumulating things, heaping them on that center, and I don't want them to go away from me, that is the problem. So things will come in and things will go out. The river is constantly flowing. Let the flowing river continue. Don't try to dam it. So things will come in and things will go out. Positive things will come in, positive things will go out, negative things will come in, negative things will go out. The idea is this is the way the mind and nature works. Then you will be able to get a grip on the mind. To get a grip on the mind, you must know the mind, know what exactly runs the mind. And if you have negative things inside, let go. Just let go. And they will go out. And sometimes they are buried down deep inside, so you'll have to bring them out. And how do you bring them out? Through the power of awareness, attention. Face those things completely. Those that embarrass you, those that make you grimace, you wince, those that make you cry, those that make you agitated. Face it. Let them emerge and you look at those things. And as you look at those things, they will become disabled.
Question regarding the flame meditation. During meditation, focus on the flame. Should I repeat the mantra or should I just focus on the flame?
If you can do both, good. If you can do one of them properly, just focus, that also is good. So I would like you to focus on the flame and narrow it down from the periphery down to the center, and at the same time repeat the mantra. You're using both the name and form principles of the mind.
During meditation, doing japa, I lose the mantra, but I feel I am mumbling, like it
No.
comes back in after a few seconds.
No, one
Can you
has to
repeat
be
it?
when repeating the mantra, sometimes you lose a kind of awareness and it's like you're mumbling something and then suddenly you come back. No, that is the mind just lapsing into a kind of a indolence or kind of a, you can say, it's diverted. One has to become aware. See, what happens is, this is a powerful tool in your mind. So, one has to repeat it, the mantra, while thinking of its meaning, and as I've said before, also visualize the image of the deity. So these three things have to be done simultaneously. Repeating the mantra, visualizing the deity, and thinking of its meaning. So this occupies the mind. It makes the mind perfectly alert and conscious.
Last question. Pranam Maharaj, I feel the distance between myself and my mind after meditation. How does one increase the quality of meditation? Because after some time this disappears.
Oh, if you can, if you are feeling different from the mind, that's wonderful. That's in one of our future videos, we will discuss this. Oh, that's wonderful. You are actually not the mind at all. You have got into this mess due to an old, you can say, ignorance, avidya, they say. And we think that we are mind, the thoughts are mind. So if you can disassociate yourself from the mind, it's good. But we are talking now about the subjective and objective mind. It is within something called antakarna, inner instrument. The mind is objective. The seer of that mind is the subjective mind or the buddhi. So that is actually within it. So though you think that the mind is different from me, you are within that, you can say, module. The subjective mind is watching the objective mind. So now make the subjective mind stronger and stronger. And stop identifying yourself with the objective mind.
There came another question. You want to answer? How do I cut the bond of negative thought in meditation?
Oh, think of positive thoughts. How do you cut the bonds of negative thoughts? Well, you bring in, if you feel unloved, take for instance, just remember that God loves you. Yes. Then there are millions and millions of people who are unloved, uncared, isolated. Never let these kind of feelings pull you down. That this world is built on a divine plan. There is the divine providence here. And learn to look at people in a different light, with different eyes. See how people themselves, each and every person is struggling, has got long struggles behind him or her. There are long struggles also behind you. Push on. The moment you become negative, that means you have kind of given up that struggle or given up pushing. Go push forward in renewed vigor. Struggle. That is actually life. Don't worry. Whenever you feel you are alone, remember the great truth that no life exists in isolation. This whole life is networked. Like all of nature is networked, all of life is networked from the lowest to the highest. Okay.
You want to take more of this? Okay. At some point of meditation, I feel empty mind and then follows a sleep state. Does that signify breaking the meditation?
When you meditate, you fall asleep. Does it signify break in meditation? So it goes blank first, another. So there's something called, you can say, just before the mind falls asleep, before you go to sleep at night, there is a stage called the hypnagogic and hypnopompic. When you're transitioning from one waking state to the dream state, you transition to a kind of a hazy state. Now, when the mind goes blank, it should not go blank in meditation. So when you're feeling a kind of blankness, get up from the seat, splash water on your face or pace up and down and sit down again. The mind has to be perfectly alert, concentrated and awake. Don't let sleep overpower you.
Last question. If someone insults me, then I cannot let that person go from my meditation. What should I do?
Yeah. What happens is, this is natural. When somebody insults you, you feel bad about it, and while meditating you just can't let it go. Yes, it is true, it is difficult. It is difficult, but it is possible. It may not go in 1 day, it may not go in 2 days, it may not go in 3 days, but like I spoke about, a habit can be broken. And this is not the first time that you are being kind of railed against and then you're feeling bad. No, it has become habitual. You have to break that habit. So, like I said, bring in the counter thoughts. Somebody scolded you, somebody berated you, bring thoughts of people praising you or loving you. Why not? What's wrong with that? So things will pop up over and over again. Those things which pop up, in fact, they can be first disabled by the power of attention. Break it down. When thoughts, negative thoughts, or thoughts of, you can say, scolding or something that they do come, they're disturbing the mind, your meditation, bring it up and start dissecting it. Lay it out bare and analyze it, and you will find, just silly, it was just sometimes my knee-jerk reaction to. Secondly, as you meditate, your mind will become mature. You will not be bothered by the bark of puppies. Do you get frightened when the puppies bark? You know, when a big dog barks here, you might get a kind of a little cautious. So all the small things in life will be just let gone when the mind matures. So I want you to meditate, keep on meditating. Don't be dissuaded by.
What is a knot? Just repeating knot. I don't know what you're talking about.
The node, the knot.
The knot.
Yeah, the question asked is, what do you mean by those nodes? So a stream of chains, association, stream of thoughts are tied to one of those old emotions like ignorance, and then egotism, love, hate, fear, all these things. So they don't stand kind of just floating. They need some kind of peg. That hole, that node is that peg from where things are tied and from things emerge. So once you break that peg or the stump or the node,
What is it there?
node, N-O-D-E, then what happens is,
No.
then the whole chain kind of breaks down.
What you mean a knot?
Yes,
Another word is not for the nose.
yes,
I got it.
yes.
Thank you.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.